Welcome to Upland Community Church Table Talk, a series of recorded conversations where we talk rather informally about whatever we want. Hope you enjoy the show. Welcome back. We are excited to record a conversation today about the #1 New York Times bestseller, The Anxious Generation: How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness, by Jonathan Haidt. Now, I don't know if it's currently literally #1 on that New York Times bestseller list, but it doesn't matter. To me, the importance of this book for its explanatory power of understanding what's going on with going on in America specifically, in our relationship to technology and mental health. It's a tremendous book. Very powerful explanatory power, and I'd like to chat with Hutson about his reactions to this and also share my own. But before we do that, we thought that it would be fun in our podcast to have a segment where we do a little bit of character analysis on fictional characters. So maybe they're from Narnia or Lord of the Rings or other works that we find insightful. But we thought we would start today with... Who do you want to start with today, Hutson?
I would like to start with arguably one of the greatest fictional characters of all time, maybe.
Yeah.
We could get into that.
Reepicheep
from the Chronicles of Narnia.
Reepicheep from the Chronicles of Narnia. So let's say some of our listeners have never heard of this. How would you just quickly set that up? Who's Reepicheep?
Reepicheep is the character you want to be.
The character you want to be.
One of the characters
Very
you want to be.
Very inspiring.
He is a small mouse.
He's a mouse.
But large in courage. He is found in Prince Caspian and The Voyage of the Dawn Treader are the two books that you will see him clearly in the Chronicles of Narnia. A friend of the Pevensies, friend of Aslan, and he is a warrior. Now we'll get into this in some ways, and I'm sure you'll bring up the word chivalry.
Chivalry. He's a chivalrous mouse.
Yes, he's
a talking mouse.
He's a talking mouse.
He's a swashbuckling mouse.
Oh,
he's got his
swashbuckling.
His sword, and he's ready to fight, isn't he?
Yes.
Good.
Mighty in battle, meek in hall.
That's right. So that's the definition of chivalry, an easy to remember definition of chivalry. Chivalry may be making you think of knights and honor and tournaments and jousts and medieval times and these types of things. And certainly if you read the Chronicles of Narnia, you'll notice that much of it's set in kind of a medieval world. The warcraft that is pursued is medieval. The kings and queens and the castles, it has a medieval kind of feel to it. And Reepicheep is a knight, and so he's supposed to have the honor code associated with the Middle Ages, which is, in shorthand, we could just call that chivalry, which you just said, mighty in battle, meek in hall. Now, what does that mean? It means that on the battlefield you're courageous and effective. You survive. You can lead others. But then also that you're not a slob. So meek and hall means that at a banquet you know your manners, that you have a way of being in court with royalty and nobles that is highly honorable, but also posh in the sense of finely dressed and able to speak well. And so in Reepicheep we find not only his courage to charge into the fray, but also his courtly way of speaking, his concern for honor, and in The Voyage of the Dawn Treader specifically, C.S. Lewis is really bringing out manners because the little stinker, Eustace Scrubb, who has terrible manners and who is mean to the mouse, is taught a lesson by Reepicheep with the flat of his sword as he thrashes him to begin teaching him to be courteous. So, regardless of what you think about, corporal punishment, you definitely have an attempt by this warrior mouse to beat some manners into the stinker Eustace Scrubb. But that's an ongoing theme. That's not the only scene that you see it. So why do you like Reaper Cheap?
Yeah, well, let me set in a little bit on why I wanted to talk about him a little bit.
Okay.
So recently had a discussion with Dan, about the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and he was introducing the book a little bit, and we started getting into Reaper Cheap's character, and we talked about the voyage, the journey toward the sun and the east lands. One thing that I love about Reaper Cheap, and especially in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, is that he is determined. He is so set on finding Aslan and his land. Mm-hmm. His face, it makes me think of Scripture. Like, his face is set, and he is moving toward the goal.
That's right.
And there's nothing that is going to hinder him.
That's right.
And it is so beautiful that I was like, this is something we must talk about on this podcast.
I love it.
So yeah, curious to hear you maybe riff a little bit on, his determination and how that applies to our lives today.
Yeah, so this starts in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader by Reaper Cheap telling the story of a prophecy that was said over him when he was in his mousy infancy, about him seeking this great reward in the East. If I had the little rhyme up, I could refresh on that. But he has never forgotten it, and he's intensely loyal to Aslan the king. But his heart's desire is to get to his country, which is Lewis's metaphor for heaven. And so the Voyage of the Dawn Treader is sailing east towards Aslan's country, off the map, essentially, which is kind of scary for them. They don't know if they'll even survive looking. But this mouse doesn't care. He's like, let's go. I will go as far as you'll let me go. And so you can think about Scripture. He has his eyes fixed on Jesus. He's looking for the kingdom whose foundations are eternal, and he will sail east or die trying. And he's the only character that really doesn't experience, let me take that back a little bit. Lots of characters survive. That's not what I'm saying. But he's the only character that gets into Aslan's country by paddling his little boat into Aslan's country. And so he goes to heaven, so to speak, without dying. So if you could think of your biblical characters like Enoch or Elijah, these characters that are raptured or translated directly into heaven, he's in that category. But I think what you're saying is most inspiring is his determination and his focus, if you will, on the Lord and on his heavenly place for us. That is inspiring when you're reading the novel. Like you can kind of face hard things knowing that the Lord is with you and that there's an end to your journey that is wholesome and good, and that we can go after it. So he really is very lovely.
He is
very beautiful.
And I guess we probably should preface with saying there's some spoilers in this episode.
Oh well,
but, for
if you
those
haven't
who want to
read Narnia
read
by
it.
now, go read it.
But the reason I say that is you can only appreciate Reaper Cheap's final entering into Aslan's country so much if you do not understand the battles that he's faced to get there, and the incredible focus that he has had through different trials, which takes me back to Prince Caspian.
That's right.
And
That's right.
I think a scene well worth talking about in him losing his tail.
Reaper Cheap lost his tail. It's
Yes.
true.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so he shows incredible honor in that final battle. Well, I shouldn't say the final battle.
Well, that battle.
The battle in Prince
is
Caspian.
a tremendous battle, and he's always thinking about giving it all in battle. And if I die on the field, I'll have a glorious death. And so he fights it out. And at the end of this great battle in Prince Caspian, he's brought half dead to the feet of Aslan. And his 12 brave mouse followers are with him, 12 being significant there, I think, for sure. And he's all wounded. He has no tail. Lucy, of course, has her magic cordial that was given to her by Father Christmas, which is healing. It's medicinal. And so she right away tends his wounds with this cordial, and he's healed, and he's pretty much back to normal, except one of the limiters on Lucy's cordial is that it won't regrow his tail. And when Reepicheep discovers that he's missing his tail, he's extremely embarrassed. He says that something like the tail is the honor and the dignity of a mouse. And he asks about having his tail. And Aslan kind of rebukes him a little bit. You get the sense that he's not too happy about the mouse's vanity or his pride about his appearance. And Reepicheep very humbly responds to this by saying, no, it's about the dignity of my people. If I, as their leader, don't have a tail, it's not only hard on me, it's hard on them. And the scene kind of shifts over and pans over to the mice, and they've all got their tails, they're holding their tails and their swords, ready to slice their own tails off in order to show solidarity with their leader. And Aslan is kind of moved by their intercession and by this request, and he says this is honorable, and gives him a fresh tail. And it is all part of this theme of his chivalry, of honor, of dignity, of leadership. And I think it's very inspiring, and we could we could talk for the rest of our time about dignified leadership and collective honor, and what kind of chivalrous code we should have in our institutions, in our churches, in our schools, how we in our homes, even how we should treat train our children to be mighty in battle and meek in hall. But right now we're working far more on the manners side than on weaponry at the Gloucester house. So I'll just say that.
That's
though,
good.
if you go drive by my house, you may see a sword fight with very safe things. Don't get me wrong, not actual swords on any given day at my house. Lots of play in the yard. But
Good.
Yeah. It's good.
That feels like a good segue to child-based play. But
yes,
I think
does. You're right.
I think the icebreaker is well worth it.
It was.
And,
thank you.
I think it's important for us to scratch the surface of some of those conversations.
It's pretty fun. Pretty
what
fun.
is worth dying for? What is worth being honorable for?
Absolutely, my friend. Fix your eyes on Jesus.
Fixing our eyes on
We're
Jesus.
going east.
Amen.
Good. So, this book, it's important. If you, I would say, are listening and you're wondering if you should read it, you definitely should read it.
Yeah.
I would say if you can afford a copy, your own copy, go ahead and buy it. Or take notes in it. Dog-ear the pages. Some of you are gasping when you hear me say dog-ear the pages. But it will help you understand the world that you're living in. Yeah. It'll help you understand yourself. It'll help you understand the people you're trying to lead, whether they may be just the folks in your household who look to you for counsel and care. So
it is so good for any age. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, and I think having an intergenerational conversation about how you experienced it as a 20-something and how I experienced it as a 40-something could be super helpful. Yeah. So I thought maybe the way to have this conversation is I could go first and kind of explain how I experienced it, also maybe give a little bit of contextual background, and then I'll ask you, Hutson, about how it made you feel or how it made you think about your own childhood. Yeah. The reason why we're bringing up childhood, again, the book is called The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. The subtitle is How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness. And he is a social psychologist, very smart social psychologist, very influential career and writing career as well now, and is deeply concerned that a phone-based childhood has replaced in America a play-based childhood, and that there's a high correlation and maybe even a causal correlation between this type of early childhood formation and an epidemic, a literal epidemic of depression and anxiety among our youth. He argues convincingly that it's affecting girls more than boys, but it's affecting the boys too. And so what does that mean? Let me just flesh that out a little bit. What's the difference between a phone-based childhood and a play-based childhood? Some of you maybe old enough to remember a time before phones, and you can remember growing up in a world where everybody wasn't staring at screens. You might remember riding your bike all around the neighborhood and being told by your parents, just be home when the street light comes on. We want you home at dark. You can remember perhaps going over to your friend's house. Maybe your parents didn't know exactly where you were, but you were in a community who knew you, and that was a safe thing to do. It wasn't considered to be irresponsible. You can probably also remember a time when playground equipment wasn't quite so, what do you want to say, padded, safe. There were jungle gyms that were shockingly high, slides without enclosures that you could fall off of. Some of us did. Super high swing sets where you could, swing as high and as fast as you wanted to and go flying off at the peak of the thing if you dared and come crashing to the ground, try to land on your feet. Maybe you can remember a merry-go-round where you could spin so hard and so fast that you weren't sure you were going to be able to make it back into class without being nauseated. This was sort of the playground experience, even in the school life that you would have growing up before these things started to change. So he cites like 5 danger competencies that children kind of overcome learning how to play in that kind of world that really can establish resilience for them to face danger in the world without becoming too afraid or anxious. So I can usually remember 4, not 5, but let's see how we do it kind of off the cuff. He talks about danger related to heights. So maybe you climb trees, go up to a top of a tall ladder or a swing set. You go perhaps climb on the jungle gym, that there was a kind of conquering of heights related to your childhood. Another thing that he's talked about is speed. Maybe you want to see how fast you can go down a hill on your bike, or see how high you could pump the swing set. So you're just rushing through the air, that you would feel the danger associated with speed and learn something from it. The third thing then being power tools, which I was a little bit surprised by, but maybe you grew up and your mom or dad will let you use a drill or even a power saw in certain supervised situations, and you get used to the screaming motor and the danger of perhaps losing a finger, and you make stuff. So he talked about power tools. Fourthly, this has to do with navigation and the potential of getting lost. So being able to explore your neighborhood on your bike without a parent telling you turn right, turn left, or a device with GPS where you are having to navigate, and that the very real reality is that you could get lost, and in getting lost, you would need to find a resource person. You'd need to talk to somebody who knew their way and recover your way home. So the idea of navigation and being able to get lost and troubleshooting if you did get lost being an important sort of childhood competency. So there's 4, not 5. Do you know what the 5th one is?
Yeah, I've got it pulled up here. I believe the 5th is dangerous elements.
Dangerous
so
elements.
Fire. Yeah.
Yes. Did your parents let you play with fire, Hudson?
We had bonfires for sure,
bonfires,
where
okay.
Dad would let me start it or something. We've got a funny family story actually with that one. Do we have time for a funny family story?
I think this is a great place. I've been sort of trying to give an outline.
Christmas morning in the Holbein.
Christmas morning
in the Holbein household, and I hope my family get to hear this episode because they'll be rolling. This is like a key family memory for us.
A core memory.
So and it's funny. It just builds too because as a child, I had the personality of just like destroying things, like glass cups or dropping cups, silverware, like
keep the fragile stuff away from
house
Hudson.
once. Yes. Just absolutely.
Did you just say you flooded the house?
Yeah, that's another story. We'll another day.
Awesome. I can't wait.
So this one is particularly sad because I was a little bit older when this one happened. Like heightened responsibility, like the youthful mistakes of my, I don't even know, 7-year-old.
Yeah. Wait. How old are you in this story?
I'm probably like 9 or 10.
9 or 10.
So
all the
like,
water under the bridge of your life as a 9-year-old.
Water under the bridge. That's a good one. So anyways, Christmas morning. And, very excited, buzz around the house. In the old house that we lived in, we had a old chimney where we'd put up the fire. The Christmas tree would be in the living room too. Very cozy atmosphere. And, I had a fascination with this fireplace.
Of course you did.
My parents.
Who wouldn't?
Oh yeah, my parents, were wise and helped me keep a safe distance. But I was pestering my dad. I think all week probably like, can I help? Can I help with the fire? Can I help with the fire?
Sure.
And so Christmas morning rolls around, and the day has come. I get to help with the fire. And my dad all morning is like, okay, you can't go over there because I've got to go open the chimney up. Like, I've got to make room for airflow. But I just can't get my hands off of it. I'm like, I got to do this. So I go and start the fire. The chimney is not open, and smoke billows through the home on our Christmas morning.
No, that is so funny.
And so my dad, out in his PJs, climbs to the roof, gets up on the chimney, opens the latch, smoke comes out, and we enjoy our Christmas brunch with a slight flavor of smoke.
And you learned important words that you didn't know before, like flu and such.
Yes,
important,
indeed.
Very important. So around these 5 competencies, we at some point became nervous as a generation and so safety conscious that we started taking these things away. And so he talks about the loss that occurs. Okay, maybe you make kids a little bit more safe. Maybe there's technically fewer broken arms. But what was lost? And the idea of there's a loss of a type of resilience that comes from experiencing danger in guided ways that help you know that you can experience something scary, but you're going to find your resource person. You're going to be able to find your way. That part of our growth was getting stunted at some point.
Right.
And it corresponds with the rise of a digital environment where children, instead of being outside sort of building these types of muscles, are more screen-based, screen-focused. They are learning different types of things from the screen, and there's all kinds of justification for how maybe it's educational. Or we're not here, and he's not here to say that it's been wholly bad, but the amount of screen time tracks with the rise of this epidemic. But not just devices particularly, though he has a lot to say about the problems that the devices represent for distractedness and development, and even what we've been saying about changing play. But the rise of the social internet being particularly disadvantageous to children as development. But now the risks of harm being amplified by the way social media works, the way that it's designed to have people kind of live on there instead of live their real life.
Keep you on the app.
And the potential for not being able to trust people the same way, the way it privileges physical aspects of their personality, then instead of them being whole persons, they're sort of a curated avatar, and how that changes the way they interact socially. And I just found it tremendously revealing and powerful to understand what's happening. So I am old enough to have received the play-based childhood that he describes, and also to kind of navigate into the digital world probably in my late 20s. It's the first time I had a smartphone, first time I'm exposed to the social internet, well through my childhood before these things came in. They introduced to me in adult life. So my main task has been not only to figure out how to keep it managed as an adult, but also figuring out how to raise my kids in a world where this is the norm. So we have 4 children, varying in ages. Now I've got a senior in high school down to third grader. And how are we going to use screens in their development? When will they get their first phone? When will they be allowed to be on the social internet? Where parents in my sort of phase are just super helpful for Jonathan Haidt's work, because now you've got like a pretty weighty voice describing best practices, or at least warning you off of things that could be pretty devastating to your children. So from a parental, I'm experiencing this book mostly from a parental perspective, and, trying to share it with other parents so that they're more aware of the risks and rewards associated with this type of tech, so that they can make wise decisions, and it feels a little bit less like the wild, wild west. But you are experiencing the book from a different vantage point. You just graduated from college, no kids yet, no wife yet. So how did you experience Haidt's work?
So I am 22. I got my first social media platform in the heat of puberty, somewhere around 7th grade, probably sometime in middle school. I didn't play a ton of video games, but we had a PlayStation 2 growing up that was frequently used. But as soon as video games kind of launched into the social world of like being able to play with people online, and multiple states over around the world, I kind of phased out of video games around that point. I feel like, I mean, I played some of the war games, I guess, but
not a lot.
Okay. So yeah, the majority of my experience from Haidt's work would fall in the realm of the social dilemma on social media. I experienced this book like a roller coaster. It's so interesting because you read through pages. If you're a person my age, you read through these pages and you see yourself. It's literally talking about my generation. Like this is what I grew up in.
So can you unpack that? I have 2 questions for you to unpack that. One, did you play a lot outside? I mean, you already gave us a pretty funny like fire story, but were you like mostly inside on screens, or would you say, well, I'm an athlete and I rode my bike? Like, describe your childhood a little bit for us from that like play definition standpoint that he's giving us.
Yeah.
And then the second thing would have to do with when you say my generation, like when you expand out past your childhood, talk to us a little bit about like the friends that you had in high school and college and what their experience was. Maybe you can talk about both of those things.
Sure. So personally, can you give me the first question again?
Yeah. So did you have more of a play-based childhood or a phone-based childhood? So did you? No worries. I can say, did you ride your bike? Did your parents kind of always have to know exactly where you were, or did you have a longer leash, or even a free-range childhood? Could you go down to the park and
I wanted to start
lost?
answering your second question first, but I wanted to
no,
make
that's
sure
fine.
I
And then the
answered your
second
first
question,
first.
the second question has to do with more of the friends side stuff.
Yeah. So first question first. I would say I did have a play-based childhood. I don't know if Southeastern Michigan was just behind on the times, but we had merry-go-rounds, so
Sweet.
I'm thankful for that. Shout out Southeastern Michigan. But
are they still there?
that's a good question. Go back and see if Cement City Park has a merry-go-round still. I hope so.
That's funny.
So there were restrictions that I had as a child, like so much time on the television, or we'd go to bed at a certain time with a curfew. So
did you have a TV in your room?
No. My brother and I had a lava lamp though, so that was pretty fun.
That is so awesome.
Oh yeah, it was great. It was great. So I mean, there were some things that we structured as a family around technological things. Like I remember we would watch American Idol as a family on
like television.
I don't know what it was, like Wednesday nights, and
Right.
my brother and I would watch some of the superhero like cartoons or superhero shows that would come out on a weekly basis.
Did you have your own iPad or your own phone?
I did eventually get an iPad around middle school, but that like was joint with the school. It wasn't like a personal iPad.
Okay.
It was like you need one for school.
Yeah.
But it turned into a personal iPad basically as I downloaded
Whatever you
Minecraft and whatever. And that's where I think my social media life started, was kind of on that device.
Okay.
Eventually got a laptop in high school. I started with a track phone, like a flip phone, upgraded to a slide phone, a BlackBerry.
Ooh.
Felt really, really cool, even though everyone else had a smartphone at this point. But I was proud of it. Maybe I'm just weird. I don't know.
I think it's great.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. And then eventually did get an iPhone sometime in high school. My first phone came late middle school. First smartphone came probably mid high school.
Okay.
Maybe early high school.
And were you later than your peers or ahead of them, or like?
Definitely later.
Okay.
Definitely later. And I think it was partially caused by my family structure. I've got 2 older brothers, and I'm significantly behind both of them in age. So 7 years between, or 6 years, depending on which brother you talk to, between the middle child and myself. 8 to 9 years, depending on who you talk to, between the oldest brother and myself.
Super funny.
It is funny. It is funny. But needless to say, a decent age gap. So I think, and thankfully, I'd say my parents carried on a lot of the same parenting strategies on me as they did the eldest, who was born in the early 90s.
Well, I think I remember you saying as you were like midway through this book that you talked to your folks and just really thanked them for how they raised you.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
So why would you do that?
Oh, the reasons are numerous, but you mentioned it earlier. I think there's something lost. There's something lost when we move to a phone-based childhood. And I notice a different kind of courage and leadership and resourcefulness in myself that I do not see in my peers. And this is starting to get to more of your second question you asked me earlier, is what was going on in the circles around me. I was a late bloomer in the technological age of my peers. Everyone around me seemed to have social media accounts before me, iPhones before me, smartphones before me.
How did that make you feel? Did you resent your parents
Um,
when that was going down?
I think you'd have to ask them. It's hard for me to remember. I probably did. I like to believe I didn't, but I probably did, and I probably pestered them about getting what
they
everyone
did
else
experience
had.
the pressure, because that's one of the things Haidt
did.
talks about, parents being in a lose-lose situation.
Totally.
That their child, if they don't cave to the pressure to give them their phones early, will become isolated, or the parental relationship will be broken in some way that's hard to rectify. But if they go ahead and cave and give them what they want, that everything actually gets a lot worse. Yeah. And then they can't, it's sort of Pandora's box is open. There's no way to close it again. And they just wish that they had, many of them, there's testimonies in here about they just had wished that they had held their ground, even if their kid kind of almost hated them. So I mean, it really is a catch-22 that's unique and really, really hard on families right now. So you said you're a little bit behind. You don't really remember exactly how that affected your relationship with your folks, but you remember it mostly as positive.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you were able to get it through my thick 13-year-old skull of the things that I'd be losing
right
when I accessed, these apps, I would have said, no, I want to live in the real world. Like, I want to have real friends. But the issue is, even if I wanted those things and I truly believed those things, what is everybody else doing?
Right.
And so you might get isolated. And I think we'll get to it eventually, but at the end of the book, Jonathan Haidt has some helpful things around communal efforts.
Yes.
He basically says you have to be able to do it with groups of people. You can't do it in a vacuum. You can't do it by yourself.
Right.
But to just briefly get back to kind of what I was experiencing, or with the people around
Yes,
me,
the
there
people
there
around
there
you.
were. I could tell looking back in retrospect. I don't think I was able to notice at the time, but I mean, yeah, people were totally like fearful of probably everyday social dynamics that would have been common probably decades earlier, of like just asking a girl out on a date.
Super
That's
scary.
foreign. Like, I feel like that's so foreign now. Like, you have to navigate okay, I Snapchat her first, and then I direct message her on Instagram, and then maybe I graduate to a text message, maybe even
Whoa.
a cell phone call, and then eventually I'll be able to talk to her in person.
Whoa.
It's like, oh my
So this
goodness.
like long digital runway that's terrifying.
Oh, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. And,
It
I
was
think,
scary before, and
it's so encouraging to hear that.
it was scary before. What you're describing though is worse, as I hear it.
Oh,
That's worse.
It feels terrible. I don't know if it's worse. I don't
So
know if I
then
have
you
the
get to
platform
college
say.
and how
You're still figuring all that
your
out.
friends you experience them, like in what ways do you experience them with relationship to their discipline regarding technology
Yeah.
and their academic and social success? Do you feel like it's going well? Is
Yeah,
it middling? I mean, do you have any feelings out on
Taylor,
that?
I'm so thankful for a place like Taylor because I think it gathers like-minded people, especially, well, I keep talking about the real world, but I think there are a lot of people at Taylor who desire to live in the real world.
And I think that by that you mean living in embodied interpersonal ways, that you're not just alone engaging socially through the internet.
Yeah. Jonathan Haidt has on page 9 of his book, he defines the real world.
Oh, nice.
It's very helpful. So he brings it down to 4 things: embodied experience, synchronous, it's
What does
1-to-1
synchronous
or
mean?
0.
Go a little slower.
And I'll go back through
Oh,
these.
fair, sorry.
High bar for entry and exit. So
Okay.
the first one, embodied. That I'm just gonna read it.
That
verbatim.
sounds great. Let's do it.
Number 1, they're embodied, meaning that we use our bodies to communicate. We are conscious of the bodies of others, and we respond to the bodies of others both consciously and unconsciously. So that's the first thing he notes about the real world, or living in the real world.
Good.
The second thing he says is the real world is synchronous, which means they are happening at the same time with subtle cues about timing and turn taking. And it makes sense. You can easily think of or imagine a social dynamic where you're interacting with a person face to face and how you pick up cues from one another. And that's how that's completely distorted on the internet. You have all the time in the world to think about how you want to respond. Moving on. Number 3, they involve primarily 1-to-1 or 1-to-several communication, with only one interaction happening at a given moment. And then 4th and finally, they take place within communities that have a high bar for entry and exit. So people are strongly motivated to invest in relationships and repair rifts when they happen. And that's I think that's a massively significant point, that there's high bar for entry and exit, meaning you're constrained by the people around you in good ways. You have positive social pressures that keep you from maybe saying something you don't want to say. But when you're living behind a mask on the internet, you can say whatever you want without any repercussions.
Interesting. So yeah, I think what you're doing is super helpful. Why don't we go continuing down the contrast?
Yeah, the virtual world.
Where he flips this and says the virtual world are the opposites of the 4 things you just mentioned. The virtual world gives you a disembodied experience. Go ahead. You're doing a great job.
Yeah, of course.
Listen to
So yeah, just like Dan said, these are contrasted almost 1-to-1. So as the real world was embodied on the first marker, for the virtual world, the first one is disembodied. They're disembodied, meaning that no body is needed, just language. Partners could be, and perhaps already are, artificial intelligences, so AIs. The second one, so the real world, number 2, was synchronous. Number 2 for the virtual world is asynchronous. They are heavily asynchronous, happening via text-based posts and comments.
So there's a delay.
Et cetera.
There's a delay in your interactions.
Right.
It's not in real time.
Right.
Okay.
It's not happening in real time, exactly. The third one, so real world was one-to-one or one-to-several. For the virtual world, they involve a substantial number of one-to-many communications, broadcasting to a potentially vast audience. Multiple interactions can be happening in parallel.
So they're not only talking to one person, they could trying to be talking to their entire list of Facebook friends or Instagram
or potentially the
followers,
whole world,
or the whole world, right? Which changes the interaction significantly.
Totally. I mean, it's very different if you're talking in a one-to-one personal context in real time, sharing some personal information. You have a level of trust that this information will stay between you and your friend. Whereas, on some of these other platforms, you are broadcasting to a massive audience, and I think that changes the development of how we understand like building trust, how we understand communicating. I think there are children who are growing up in a world where they think everything that I want to share with somebody needs to be broadcasted to everyone instead of, the proverbial truth of finding gold in a good friend who stands by you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It makes me emotional to think about. And then the fourth and final one for the virtual world, they take place within communities that have a low bar for entry and exit, so people can block others or just quit when they are not pleased. Communities tend to be short-lived, and relationships are often disposable.
So that one means online, the stakes are lower.
Yes.
For making a social blunder or offending someone.
Right.
Because maybe you don't care anymore.
Right.
And in real life, you're going to see him next day at school.
Yeah.
You have to really consider the relationship and the long-term social ramifications of your actions.
Yeah. Online, if you don't like it, you can just leave.
Yeah.
And you can leave in a fury if you want to.
Totally.
Leave all the comments and out you go. But
so, Hudson, you brought up this list with regard to being thankful to be at Taylor because you did have a significant portion of the community that was interested in living in the real world, not just, being in the room on a screen.
Yes.
So,
yes.
That was a good thing.
There are caveats, of course, and I've noticed this the older I've gotten, especially in my fifth year as a student athlete at Taylor. It just seems like every year the freshman class gets a little more attached to their screens, and you notice it in the dining commons. You notice it in the library.
I notice it when I'm walking around campus and people are looking down.
Yeah.
They often will have a much higher prevalence of like earbuds and headphones on too. So they're having a more curated auditory experience of the world as they walk around, but also maybe are just looking down. I mean, I'll walk by like acquaintances, people I know, and I don't like stop them to say hi, but they're not even going to see me. They'll walk right by because they're looking down instead of up. And so I'm not mean to cast dispersion on that. I don't want people to think, oh, you can't, look at your phone or somebody's going to judge you. But at the same time, that what is the real world, even with regard to being able to hear the birds or see the sky or a person on the sidewalk, is a pretty interesting crossroads or place that we're at right now.
It is.
So, I mean, your interesting observation about the freshmen has to do with which way is it trending, and it's hard to know. Let's talk. We have a few minutes remaining about some of the hope that Haidt offers. You already sort of teased us with the notion that we need to do something in groups, but I also think that he has some hope that policy related to the social internet, and not only from a federal rules perspective on the big social internet companies, but also how schools have rules related to phones in the classroom. So you want to hit any of those? Or
yeah, I like your outline. I mean, Haidt breaks it down into basically what governments can do, federal down to local levels. What schools can do, what parents can do, and I think that's a helpful way of thinking about it. Understanding, what can you really control, what is within your power to make a difference.
So I think from a federal level, Haidt's hoping what happens with social internet, that there's more minimum age requirements.
I'm blanking on the name of the act or the policy that was set years ago, but it basically said that the COPPA, that's what it is, COPPA. It's an act, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, enacted in 1998. Basically sets the age for internet adulthood at the age of 13. And it's interesting, Haidt quotes the guy who was kind of the first sponsor for this act, and he desired the age to be like 18. And the representative, I forget what his office was, basically was talking about it ended up being a bargain to get it down to get it to 13. Like people were a compromise, if you will, which is quite sad. But Haidt in this chapter for what governments can do talks about advocating for a higher age to review and renew the COPPA Act, and seeing a higher age for internet adulthood, which I think is quite wise. There are other things that he mentions about artificial intelligence, weariness, and an urgency of getting ahead of the ball and getting policymakers to try to get a good grasp and understanding of where AI is headed, and the things that we can do to protect, especially in the realm of like sexual content. It is pervasive, and finding ways to keep children off the screen. That was we alluded to it earlier, but another way of understanding Haidt's book in some is a dichotomy between overprotection and underprotection. And he talks frequently about underprotection in the virtual world. And overprotection in the real world. So he's encouraging parents to be a little more free range in the real world. Correct.
And more aware. And even restrictive in the virtual world.
Yep.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Yep. It is back and forth. Yeah. So he has some other.
So local schools need to be phone free. In fact, I just read several weeks ago that California did pass some law related to phone-free zones in schools. I don't know the details of that. You can look it up, but that phones are not helpful in an educational environment. Yeah. And then down to our families, coming up with family rules regarded these age thresholds for when you get your first phone, whether or not you have social media. To move that back further than you think that it should be, and to be resilient against the peer pressure that's going to come. And the way to turn down peer pressure is, hopefully, and one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this book, is have enough families reading this that you have a lot of community. He talks about kind of stepping out of a hole together.
That's right.
With enough critical mass.
That's right.
That there's less social pressure damaging the relationships.
That's right.
One of the things that we found interesting as well is that Jonathan Haidt does not claim to be a Christian at all, but he's very careful to say that he's friendly to faith communities because he believes that faith-based communities, particularly healthy faith-based communities, are already doing a lot of the things that he's recommending regarding living in the real world and offering real community. But it still is up to people within those faith-based communities to swim upstream right now, with regard to where the culture is pulling in relationship to very challenging relationship with tech and the internet. So, great book, totally recommend it.
Highly recommend.
And thank you, Hutson, for your insights and for sharing your perspectives on it, and hopefully we can reference it in the future again. But that's all we have for today. Thanks again for listening in. I hope you have a great day in the Lord. Talk to you later. Thanks for joining us today on UCC Table Talk. It's our hope that you found our conversation encouraging. Upland Community Church exists to equip the generations to minister the gospel of Jesus Christ in word and deed. If you'd like to learn more about our church, visit us at uplandcc.org or stop by on a Sunday morning at 8:30 or 11 o'clock. We'd love to meet you. Until next time, remain rooted in His Word and bold in His mission.